when they've been wronged and hurt so deeply. And then for me, restitution also calls for a restructure of those systems that oppress, that deny a person's humanity, or that has disenfranchised them as a result. So there's a whole change of systems that have got to happen in order that it doesn't happen again. Then we can talk about possibly reconciliation once all of those steps are put into place. And in the case of Australia, this hasn't happened. We've jumped from an apology straight through to reconciliation. There's been no restitution. There's been no systematic restructure of systems that have oppressed, that have disenfranchised, that have marginalised Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. So, you know, there's a lot we must consider.
Anne, you're describing reconciliation as a fulsome, transformative, even costly pilgrimage, as you've said in some of your other work, a pilgrimage towards justice. And this has been on your mind for decades, really, as an Indigenous leader and theologian. Can you tell me about your own introduction, firstly to Christianity, but also to a sense of sacredness more broadly? What were the spiritual influences, say, in your childhood growing up?
You know, growing up, my family were dedicated Methodists. We grew up in a small country town, central Queensland, and we were the only black family in the church. And, you know, predominantly in every church that we've been in, we've been the only black family. And this has been, you know, our experience has been very marginalising in that context, where the church, you know, doesn't even recognise its own internalised racism and prejudice towards you. You know, it thinks that it's because you go to church every Sunday and you're a part of their congregation, they think that is the basis of them being, you know, non-racist. And what they don't understand is that, you know, yeah, we go to church to worship our Creator. And, you know, it's an expression of our faith, and it's our faith that takes them there, and our love of God that takes us to church, knowing full well that the congregation and these ministers that I've encountered over the years do not even see their own racism and are blind to the fact of how they treat you.
Yeah, blind.
How were you treated? Are there things that stay with you from those early childhood years?
Oh gosh, yes. I think for my family it is, you know, layers and layers of scars, because the hurt is very deep in the way we were treated. For example, you know, I remember one occasion where our minister did the sermon on the Good Samaritan one Sunday. And in that tradition, you know, the minister at the end of the service would go to the door and everyone would shuffle past and shake his hand and comment about his service or, you know, whatever. Anyhow, as we were going out, I said to the minister, I said, how is it, Reverend, that you can preach about the Good Samaritan and how, you know, good Christians should amplify that behaviour, when we can walk outside this church and if one of my people are laying in the gutter, you fellas would walk straight over the top of them and not even give them a sideways glance.
That's it.
Well, with that, Mum gave me a clip behind the ear. I was 13 and I looked at her, you know, and she told me to get out in the car, so I went out. And yeah, when we got home, we used to have, over our Sunday lunch, we'd have great theological debates and discussion about the service or the sermon that was preached that day, and reflected our own personal experience of that. So what it was to be Aboriginal within a broader community that was so racist and treated you so appallingly, you know. And I said to my mum, I said, why did you growl at me like that? I was only being honest. I was asking the minister an honest question. You know, Mum, that they would do nothing for our people. So why couldn't I challenge him about his story and his view of them being good Christians? She said, Anne, because that's not the place. We keep that conversation here to our table. And this is where we have the conversations, not out there. And I said, no, Mum, we need to have those conversations out there. So I was raised in a home where, by a single parent, single mother, to be equal and to see myself as equal and just as good as any non-Indigenous person, any white person, and not to allow them to confine my self-worth, you know, and to take on their prejudice as a shackle that would determine my life. And the more people challenged me or compartmentalised me to the level of achievement they thought Aboriginal people were confined to or capable of, the more I was determined to prove these people wrong.
Good on you, love. Powerful stuff. That was a great thing on ABC Radio National.